I visited the Rebecca Hossack Galleries in the beginning of May. It was the first hot weekend of the year. There were two really interesting shows on that were using paper as a medium. The first that I was going to was Paper People by Jeanmard. All of these paper people had such clear personalities, they instantly made me want to think about their backstories, what worlds they came from.
What I used to do, and they're in that drawer there, you've probably seen big foam boards with shows on them, and I used to have a billboard.
I was very lucky that Jerry happened to stop by at the gallery.
I used to be an illustrator and a graphic designer, and I also have been collecting paper all my life. Some of these pieces of paper I've owned for 50 years, and I have drawers and drawers of paper. And I started making abstract images with the paper, and then probably because of my background in illustration, I began to make these people, and one led to another, and it seemed to me that they all looked best in a group. And so I began to make them, and then I published the book, which is printed in China. And it has 57 of the images, all of them different from these. And now I guess I've made maybe 100 total. And they're great fun for me because right now I'm an interior designer, so everything I do is structured and I know how it's going to look at the end of the job. But these I don't have any idea. I just start putting the paper together on the background paper, and I move them around, and then when they look right, I glue them down. So there's no preconception.
All of these kind of characters, they each look like they have their own personality. Who are they? How do you think about them when you create them?
I don't think about them until I'm in the process, and occasionally some piece of paper, some juxtaposition of two pieces of paper will make it look like something or somebody, and so then I go in that direction. But it doesn't start out that way. It starts out really not knowing how it's going to end up. And then once they're finished, then I give them names.
Can you tell me about the pieces of paper that you because they seem to have come from all over?
All over. And I like paper that has already had a history, paper that's been written on or folded or used, a lot of envelopes. And it's not necessarily pretty pieces of paper. They just sort of have character, I think. And in fact, when I glue them down, sometimes I leave the edges not completely glued so that you can see. I don't want to lose what I call the paperness of the paper. I don't want them to look flat. And I actually began doing these when I started saving my laundry tags, the little colored tags that would come back from the dry cleaners. I loved the color and I loved the way the numbers were printed on them. And then I started saving tickets from parking lots that had numbers on them. And that's when I started making the abstract ones. And it was probably 2 or 3 years later I started doing the figures, the people.
What is it that draws you to paper as a medium?
I honestly can't tell you. I just have always loved it. It's just, I love all forms of it, all types of it, all colors, all of it.
And do you have a favorite work in the exhibition?
Well, I'm sort of partial to, where did he go to? This one right here, which is called Eavesdropper.
Oh, the blue one?
Yes. I had bought a sheet of, it's an old chromolithograph, an engraving, actually a colored engraving of ears. I think there were 6 on the page, and I just put them together. See that hair or head, the hair on his head is the top, obviously, of a paper bag that already has that sawtooth edge to it. And you see how the center part is not flat. I like that part, that it's not, that it still has some dimension to it.
What inspires your vision, or has inspired your vision? Like you say, you've been an illustrator and graphic designer. Is there something, because even though everything is created from papers from all walks of, from all different times, and
right.
But it's so unique and it's clearly your vision.
Well, they all, I think, or nearly all, have some sense of whimsy to them. I try very hard not to go cross the line into twee, or too cute, or too sentimental, but I like for there to be a little bit of humor to them, and I think people respond to that. People who are not art collectors sometimes will respond just to the image.
I really like the surreal aspect of Jeanmard's work because it makes you feel like everything is possible. And I don't mean this in a blind optimism kind of way, but it's more about how it opens up your mind. As I was off to see the second show by Pine Feroda, Frankie told me a little bit about the gallery's interest in paper and also about Pine Feroda.
We're really interested in exploring lots of different media at the gallery, and recently we've started taking part in an art fair in New York that's called Art on Paper New York, which is all forms of paper art, whether it's sort of prints on paper, collage, sculpture, any sort of forms of art that's on paper really. I think paper sort of went out of fashion a few years ago, and it was people were very interested in canvas, but now paper is having a real sort of resurgence, and we're kind of celebrating that with these two shows. Pine Feroda is a group of British artists, and they're based in southwest England, and they were working individually as printmakers, but then came together in 2013 as part of an experimental sort of collaborative workshop, and started sort of creating these large-scale woodcut prints as a group. So they share the responsibilities for cutting the wood, for mixing the paint, and then applying it to the wood blocks. And all their sort of drawing is from life, so they all head down to the beach together and they submerge themselves in the water to feel the sort of swell of the waves and get really close to the environment. And then they agree together on a motif or a headland or a view that they particularly like, and then they go back to their studio as a group and then develop it into the final image. Pine Feroda are formed of 5 artists. You've got Julia Manning, Merlin Chesterman, Judith Westcott, Rod Nelson and Ian Phillips.
You don't see this from afar, but the level of detail is extraordinary. And here are the 5 artists that make up Pine Feroda.